set up to make sure that anyone can observe our democratic meetings. Please therefore remember this meeting can be watched anywhere at any time by anyone with access to the internet. There is a delay between the meeting and the YouTube broadcast of approximately 30 seconds. Webcasting officer, please can you commence the broadcast and confirm?
The broadcast is now started. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Full Council on Monday the 5th of October 2020. Before we commence with the proceedings, I can confirm the Council has adopted some etiquette rules for its remote meetings. These are: please only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. The Chairman will introduce speakers in the order that the requests to speak are made, unless there is a point of order which will be prioritised. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute their microphones when they're not speaking and consider turning off their video feed to reduce any interference on the audio. Please bear in mind that there's a slight delay between speakers as other attendees hearing you. When referring to a report, please quote page number and paragraph number. We have a private business item on the agenda this evening. Members are therefore reminded it's their responsibility to ensure that their venue and connection is private. If you lose connection at any point and are able to rejoin the meeting, please email the meeting facilitator. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI, EIR, and is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation, and the Council's Code of Conduct. For this meeting, councillors are identified with a prefix of councillor before their name, with the exception of the Chairman and Vice Chairman of the Council. There are officers in attendance. They are identified with a prefix of officer before their name. Officers will only usually speak when invited to do so. This evening, we also have a registered speaker, and they will be identified with a prefix of PTQ before their name. For this meeting, registered speakers will only be invited by the Chairman. There is a minute taken for this meeting and one meeting facilitator. Chairman, please can I advise we have received apologies from Councillors John Bohr and Dean Wallace, and I can confirm that the meeting is quorum and may proceed. I will now hand over the meeting to the Chairman, Mrs. Kilmartin. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I do apologise to interrupt you, but your microphone is switched off. Would you please like to start again with your script? Chairman, you are still switched off. Your microphone is now open. Sorry. No, you are switched off.
I'm unmute. How about that?
You are okay to proceed. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody, but I'm sure we all know the problems with microphones. Here I am, and good evening. I'm Councillor Angela Kilmartin, and I am the Chairman of the Council, and I will be chairing this meeting of Full Council. So I'd like to open this virtual meeting of Full Council by welcoming everybody, the members and the public who are viewing this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel. I'm being assisted, thank heavens, by a meeting facilitator who will help me identify when people want to speak and manage the notifications through the chat function. Now, I can't see all of you, of course, so I ask that you use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak or raise a procedural point. And so can I clarify also that during this meeting, when asked for agreement, silence will be taken as assent on those items to note. Where a vote is required, these will be conducted using a roll call. At the appropriate time, each member will be called in turn to indicate their vote. And at the end, I'll be assisted by the monitoring officer in determining the outcome. It's not a recorded vote, and the votes will not be recorded as part of the minutes to this meeting. If on any item before this meeting, members do require a recorded vote to be undertaken, then this must be requested in accordance with the provisions set out within the Council's constitution. I'd be extremely grateful if members could keep their debates concise otherwise we'll be here till breakfast, in order to assist with ensuring that we conclude this meeting within the time allocated. In addition, members, we have received formal notification that item 6 on your agendas, that's the motion by Councillor James Abbott, the cycling motion, has been formally withdrawn. As a result, that item has been removed from the agenda for tonight. So thank you, members. I'll now proceed to the first item of business, which is apologies for absence. And I've been informed that Councillor Wallace will be joining the meeting later, as I understand it, and the meeting facilitator will admit him in upon his arrival, and then I'll acknowledge that he has arrived. I have received apologies only from one councillor, Councillor John Ball. So are there any further apologies to note?
Chairman, we have actually had apologies from Councillor Wallace. He did contact the service earlier today to advise that he's unable to attend the meeting.
He's not coming. Thank you very much. Thank you. So there's only 2 absent. So that's a very full house, isn't it? No further apologies, any of you to give me? Doesn't look like it. No one's on the chat. So we're going to move to number 2 on your agenda, which is declarations of interest. Now, this always takes a time, doesn't it? Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest, or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? Now, if so, please can you state the item and the nature of your interest? Yes, and I can see people coming up. So I've got, first of all, Councillor Abbott. Please declare your interest.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Item 9, Horizon 120, I'm a member of the reference group. The Cabinet Report, item 10, I intend to ask a question which relates in part to Essex County Council, and I am a member of Essex County Council. And I also wish to declare, as other members have in previous meetings now, and it seems to be the case, that I am an administrator on a Facebook page if any matters come up that's been mentioned on there, which is the G&I Facebook page.
All done? Right, thank you very much. Now I've got Councillor Unsworth. Your declarations, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just one declaration, and that is that I am an ordinary member of the local cycling group known as Earlscone to Kelvedon Cycling Group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have 2 declarations, non-pecuniary, on item 8 in relation to the white paper. I'm a member of the Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan Group, and I'm also a member of the EC2K Cycling Group, which may come up under the Cabinet Report, item 10.
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening. Non-pecuniary interests, please. I'm a facilitator on the Facebook page Better Braintree Together and Residents for Braintree District. Item 10, there's a reference to Essex County Council, and I'm a member of Essex County Council. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Van Dolken.
Thank you, Chairman. As it's been raised before, I also am a member of the reference group for Horizon 120, reference agenda point 9.
That's it. Thank you. Now, Councillor Graham Batland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council and as a director of The Celep Limited, both of which are referred to in item 9, Horizon A120, and Essex County Council, which is referred to in some items of the Cabinet Report.
Thank you. Now, Peter Schwer, Councillor Schwer. Your declaration, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wish to make a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item number 9, Horizon 120, as I am also on the member reference group, but I shall stay in both. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wendy Schmidt.
Thank you, Chairman. Member of Essex County Council.
Thank you. Councillor Bill Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'd like to make a non-pecuniary declaration for
agenda item 9, as I'm also a member of the Horizon 120 reference group. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I make the same declaration on item 9 as a member of the Horizon 120 reference group, please?
Fine. Now I've got Councillor Thorogood.
Yeah, I'm a licence holder with a private hire taxi licence, and that might come up on page 6, I believe.
Thank you. Can I say to everybody, just a reminder, please make yourself as near to your microphones as you can. There's a fair range of sounds coming at me. So now I've got, I think I've got Councillor Cunningham. Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam. For complete transparency and in line with other colleagues, declare that I chair the Horizon 120 reference group.
Thank you very much. And I've got Councillor Butland again. Councillor Butland?
On a point of order, Madam Chair, can I just ask the monitoring officer whether it's necessary for all members to declare that they are on reference groups? I mean, that's like everybody declaring they're on the planning committee or whatever. I just asked for guidance so that members know whether in fact they should be or they shouldn't be.
Thank you very much. Can we have a little chat on that then, monitoring officer?
That's lovely. Thank you, Councillor Butland and Chairman. In terms of the declarations, the process here at Braintree District Council is over declaring, but there is no requirement to make reference to the reference groups or membership of subcommittees unless there's something that's being brought forward in terms of a recommendation from that particular subcommittee.
All right, so everybody's happy with that. I think I might have come to the end of everybody. Is there anybody else who has something to declare? I think I've finished. Right. So thank you very much, everybody, for adding your declarations. And I'm going to go now to item 3, which is minutes of the previous meeting. Now, for item 3, I'm going to be seeking your agreement. And that means that you have to keep quiet. Silence is your assent. So now my question is, do any members have any objection to the approval of the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting of full council held on the 27th of July? Any objection? Right. So I don't have any objections. Thank you very much. Your silence is agreement that the minutes are an accurate record, and we will now proceed. I see we've let somebody else in, Councillor McArdle. No, we haven't let him in. Councillor McArdle has given his apologies. Thank you very much for that. So now we're going to public question time. Item 4 is public question time, and there is one statement for tonight, this evening, for tonight's public question. And this statement is from Mr. Peter Cohn. Now, it's very nice of you to join us. We really appreciate it when the public comes in, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I think you know the various little rules that we have in place, like just up to 3 minutes. If I think you're doing really well and need another half minute, I might be nice and give it to you. All right?
Okay.
Off you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, I've been the chair of the Neighbourhood Plan Group for Coggeshall for the last 4 years, and I'm also the chair of the EC to K group, which is working on a safe cycle route between Earlscolne and Kelvedon through Coggeshall. And this is the abstract of a longer paper that I've taken the liberty of sending to officers. Cycling is enjoying a renaissance. During lockdown, we saw a massive increase in the amount of bicycles on the roads, powered by people of all ages. And this was directly due to the lack of traffic. People will cycle if they feel safe. The new government paper, Gear Change, sets out an approach to a wholesale modal shift. We're on the cusp of a once-in-a-generational opportunity to change transport patterns. What we should be looking for in Braintree is not slow incremental change, but this wholesale modal shift. While town cycling is an obvious target, full benefits will not be achieved if there's not connectivity between settlements and with the overhauled national cycling network. As Gear Change says, the routes must be direct, they must be continuous, not giving up at the difficult places. They must serve the places people actually want to go. If the district is bold, there could be wholesale change by winning a bid to become a mini Holland, to engage the backing of substantial government funding. This would make Braintree a leader in the development of 21st century British cycling. And I'd set out 3 aims. For Braintree District, while details are limited at present, Gear Change is looking for 12 pilot schemes to create mini Hollands, where intensive investment will rapidly expand cycling to replace short car trips. This follows success with London mini Holland schemes. The Braintree cycling policy would need to be updated and broadened to become a contender for a bid to become a mini Holland, and serious political support would need to be demonstrated, and the work on a bid would need to be achieved very quickly. Rural routes in Braintree District. The blue routes on the accompanying map, which I hope you've got in front of you, are the existing national cycling network. It's clear that much of the district is unconnected. The green potential routes could do much to fill in the picture, and the EC2K group are working on a north-south link between Earls Colne and Kelvedon. Added to these could be the new A12 and A120 corridors, and reassignment of part of the existing A120 when the new route is built. Links from Earls Colne to Halstead have been pursued by EC2K, and Councillor Courtauld has been extremely helpful in allowing us to consider a link over his land. Finally, lobbying central government. Braintree and ECC could lobby government to make the transition easier to achieve. The key to safe cycling is the willingness of landowners, for which at the moment there's little incentive. There needs to be both incentives and advantages to landowners to make land available in the new environmental bills, as with the example of set aside. So in conclusion, I think there's an obvious opportunity for a modal shift in transport for Braintree District. And grasping this opportunity will require you all, I'm afraid, to be very bold.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And you did very well on your time, and it was interesting too. Thank you for submitting your statement. So I think I'm now going to ask Councillor Frankie Ritchie to respond. Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope you can all hear me okay. Madam Chairman, firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Cohen through you for his statement. As a keen road cyclist myself, I share much of his desire and enthusiasm for cycling improvements within the Braintree District. Madam Chairman, with the challenges over the past 6 months that COVID has brought us, this administration, along with the dedication of our council officers, have had to plan, implement, replan and re-implement essential frontline services, distribute much needed grants to our communities and businesses, and protect the vulnerable, and advise on changes on how we go about our everyday lives, etc. So please forgive me if the work that we have continued in the background on our cycling has gone on underreported or unnoticed. I can assure you that along with the additional pressures we are dealing with week by week, good work is continuing on the cycling strategy as set out on the motion passed by Council in June of this year. As we build on that motion, I would just like to add the following, Madam Chairman. The Council recognises that National Cycle Network routes 16 and 50 offer important longer distance cycling opportunities, but these are confined to the southwest of the district, and there are no other national cycling routes within the Braintree District. The Council recognises there are a number of existing strategies at a national and local level, as well as local plan and strategy related projects which the Council is already leading on or supporting on, such as Gear Change, the Conservative Government's vision for walking and cycling, the Essex Cycling Strategy, the Braintree District Cycling Plan, the Open Spaces Action Plan, which identifies 20 projects across the district for new or improved cycle paths and 32 projects for the provision of cycle parking. The Active Green Travel Plan, which sets out planning conditions and Section 106 obligations for major developments, and the Active Essex Strategy. Can I also add that Braintree District Council has been engaged with Essex County Council in developing a high-level funding bid as part of the government's Emergency Active Travel Fund, or EATF, initiative. It's noteworthy that the current indicative allocation to Essex County Council is in excess of £7.7 million. Work is also being conducted with the County Council to develop future cycling routes across the districts. Madam Chairman, with confirmed funding, sound stakeholder engagement and a solid business plan, I'm excited and confident that we can deliver not just 4 point-to-point routes, but district-wide connectivity, Housestead and Villages, Whittam and Villages, Braintree and Villages, which will give us safer, greener, sustainable travel for all, including safer routes for cyclists. And lastly, Madam Chairman, just a point of note, some next steps that we are engaging in. Number one, we're establishing a local reference group to deliver the EATF initiative. And two, we're going to develop a cycling plan to coordinate the actions of the aforementioned strategies. And those plans will be presented to the meeting of full council scheduled on the 22nd of February 2021. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ritchie. Thank you. So, Mr. Cohn, thank you very much for joining us this evening and for your statement. And the meeting facilitator will now remove you from the meeting. However, I would encourage you to watch the remainder of this council meeting via the council's YouTube channel. So thank you again for joining us and good night. I'm just waiting while Mr. Cohn is taken away. Thank you. No, thank you, members. So that statement concludes this item, and I'll now proceed to the next item of business, which is announcements and statements from myself and the Leader of the Council. Since the last council, amazingly so long ago on the 27th of July, I've been involved in quite a few different things: virtual meetings, AGMs of all sorts, and socially distanced events. And I did one yesterday for a cricket quiz for the mosque and the Braintree Mosque and the Chelmsford Cathedral. And I'm pleased to say that the dignitaries table came second, although I got most of my questions wrong. On the 24th of July, I was at a Zoom meeting for Uttlesford District Council, and then on the 19th of August, I was in Housestead along with Councillor Pells and Councillor Radley, where we acquired some allotments, didn't we? And dug a bit of turf as well. But it was wonderful to see the allotments being handed over. On the 20th of August, I opened a fitness club, and there were dozens of people outside it. Really good, and it was nice to see something opening. Then on the 28th of August, I supplied a message for inclusion in the 2000th edition of the Mid-Essex Talking newspaper for the blind and the partially sighted. And I've written several messages, actually. I like writing messages, and my spelling's quite good and my reading's quite good, so I'm quite good at doing messages. On the 28th of August, there was another opening. No, it wasn't. This was the Active Essex Holiday Play Scheme event, which the Braintree District, which the Braintree Member of Parliament attended in Whittam. And on the 7th of September, the Mayor of Basildon held a civic service of remembrance and recognition via Zoom. But I did open another one. I opened, this time, a nursery on the 12th of September in Braintree. And they'd had that's just opposite the council offices, and they'd had a dreadful time since COVID. Once they'd got all their equipment in, would you believe the lead thieves struck? And so the roof came off and everything inside the nursery was completely ruined, and they had to start all over again, plus COVID. So I was really delighted to open them properly, and I think they're going strong. No more thieves. And a couple of nights ago, I was presenting prizes at Halstead and District Photographic Society for the Twin Towns. And because of Zoom, for the first time, Halstead Photographic actually had people from the continent joining us. It got very exciting. There were Germans and French and all sorts of wonderful photographs. And so after all of that, it's now Councillor Butland's turn, the leader of the council, to make his announcements. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to make a short statement about COVID-19 as regards Braintree District. Madam Chairman, members will be aware that there's been a significant increase in cases across the country, and regrettably, there has also been an increase in both Braintree District and the County of Essex. Whilst we are not at the levels of other parts of the country who have further local restrictions in place, there has been a significant percentage increase in cases over the last few weeks. Members will have noticed that the national R rate has been updated this morning for England to between 1.3 and 1.6. We are currently discussing plans with partners should there be a need for further local restrictions to be put in place or shielding needs to be reintroduced. As of the 2nd of October, the incidence per 100,000 population in Braintree District is 14.42. And I'd like to put that in the context of some of the figures in other parts of England, particularly in the north, which are in excess of 200. I want to make also reference to self-isolation and the test and trace support payment scheme. Members will be aware that self-isolation should be 10 days if you have symptoms and 14 days if you live with someone who has symptoms. The government has announced a new package of support to enforce self-isolation. Since the 28th of September, people are now required by law to self-isolate when instructed to by NHS Test and Trace. Those on lower incomes who cannot work from home and have lost income as a result of the instruction from NHS Test and Trace will be supported by a payment of £500. Like all local authorities, we are working quickly to set up test and trace support payment schemes, and we expect them to be in place by the 12th of October, a week today. Those people in the district who are told to self-isolate from Monday the 28th of September will receive backdated payments if they are eligible once the scheme is running. Finally, very quickly about what we are doing to support residents and businesses during this time. We continue to have an organisation-wide team who are supporting our residents, businesses and partners in respect of COVID. We are regularly communicating with businesses for any updates to guidance and regulations and speaking to businesses individually where need to support those regulations is needed. We are promoting those who are doing well so that we can all learn from each other. We continue to send out weekly newsletters to residents, parish councils, businesses and partners with updates and key messages, and providing them with links to where they can get further information. There are, Madam Chairman, significant increased demands on our teams, particularly given the change in regulations which give district councils more enforcement responsibilities. And there has been a significant increase in inquiries and complaints following the latest government guidance. We will continue to oversee the work demands on our teams. Finally, we are continuing to respond to particular issues caused or exacerbated by COVID and working with partners, businesses and our communities to mitigate these. And finally, the advice not only to members, but more importantly to everyone in Braintree District is to remember, wash hands, mask your face and maintain space. This is still a serious challenge facing us in this district, even though thankfully we're not experiencing the levels of the virus that is being experienced in some other parts of the country. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Thank you. Thank you. It's all very good reminders for us. Now, as we have heard, item 6 has been formally withdrawn. And as a result, the proposed amendment to that motion, as circulated to members on Friday, has also fallen away and no longer is to be considered as part of this evening's meeting. So I'm now going to proceed to item 7, which is an update to the appointments to committees in the council. We have needed to do this, and so the item is set out on pages 7 to 15 of your agendas, which I'm sure you've got in front of you. And I'd now like to invite Councillor Butland, Leader of the Council, to introduce this report and to move the recommendation set out on page 8 of your agenda. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I formally move agenda item 7.
Thank you. Councillor Butland has moved this recommendation. Please can I have a seconder?
Seconded, Madam Chairman, Councillor Tom Cunningham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, do any members wish to speak on this item? And if you do, please indicate by the chat function. And I will take... Who said that?
But Madam Chairman, if I can now propose, I formally moved the resolution. Now I just want to introduce it.
All right, thank you very much. Right, so now I'm going to look at the chat function and hopefully deal with every member in turn as they come on. Yes,
Chairman, if I may, Councillor Butland's yet to introduce his report, so if you could hand back to Councillor Butland to introduce,
all right,
and then we'll go to the chat function.
I'm handing back to you, Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, following the resignation of former Councillor Ron Ramage, the monitoring officer has reviewed the political proportion of committees covered by the Widdicombe rules. Her opinion is that there are no significant changes to the existing arrangements, and thus the current distribution of seats on committees does not require any alteration. Paragraph 4.2 of the report sets out the changes to replace Councillor Ramage on both the committees he sat on and an outside appointment to the Braintree and Greenfields Grants panel. Paragraph 4.3 shows an amendment to the membership of a licensing committee, whereby, and I believe this is an amendment to what you have in front of you, Councillor Stevie Hicks has been nominated to replace Councillor Jenny Sandham. Considering the above, paragraph 4.4 should be amended to reflect Councillor Hicks's membership in place of Councillor Tom Walsh on the licensing committee. For complete accuracy, Councillor Robert Van Dolken should of course be Councillor Richard Van Dolken. Paragraph 5 deals with the chairmanship of the Performance Management Board, where Council is invited to agree the appointment of Councillor Mick Radley as chairman of that committee. All the changes outlined so far, Madam Chairman, are matters for the Council to approve. Paragraph 6 deals with membership of Cabinet subcommittees, working groups and reference groups. These are not covered by the Widdicombe rules and do not require political proportionality. The membership is at the discretion of the administration, but as members will note, in line with previous practice, all the subcommittees, working groups and reference groups have representation from opposition parties. Again, for accuracy, would members please note that in paragraph 6.4, with apologies to Councillor Wrench, his forename rather, should be Justin and not Justine. And also in paragraph 6.9, the remit of the Manor Street Project Reference Group was extended to include the town centre pedestrianisation, and therefore it has been renamed the Braintree Town Centre Reference Group. Madam Chairman, with that, I therefore move recommendations 1 to 7 as shown on page 8 of the agenda.
Thank you very much. I believe now we're going to go to the chat function and deal with anybody who wants to say something. And I'm going to start then with Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to ask the leader why I am being removed from the Developing Democracy Group by himself, specific to my long-standing membership of that group. Secondly, I would like to ask the leader, contrary to what he just said, about all opposition groups being invited onto boards and panels under cabinet discretion, why the GNI group has not been offered any seats on developing democracy when that committee is set up with the purpose of developing democracy and better ways of working within the council. Thirdly, I'd like members to know that I am to be removed from attending the group leaders briefings and invitation to cabinet, and I'd like the leader please to explain why he has done that. Fourthly, why is the allocation of seats to groups as set out in paragraph 6.9 of the agenda specific to Green Party councillors only, when the GNI group is a legally constituted group on this council? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Abbott, these are questions that pertain to number 6, which we have all formally agreed is not on the agenda. So I don't know whether Councillor Butland would like to make a comment on this.
Madam Chairman, I asked questions specific to item 7.
Councillor Butland?
Very specific to item 7.
All right. Councillor Butland?
Madam Chairman, at the end of the debate, I will wind up.
Right. So now I have, thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Now I have Councillor Walsh. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question to the leader. Can you please say why you are doing this? I'm talking about paragraph 6.3. Can you say why you are doing this, specifically in terms of my role on the local planning committee, given my planning background?
Thank you very much. I don't have anybody else who has indicated they want to speak on this. And so I think I can now hand this back to Councillor Butland.
Apologies, Chairman, to interrupt you, but we've just had an indication from Councillor Unsworth that he wishes to speak. Apologies.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Wait a minute. Sorry, Councillor. I have now Councillor Unsworth. Off you go, Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you again. A question for the leader has obviously changed my position on the Performance Management Board, and given that I've had no complaints from officers or members, I'd like him to explain why he is doing this. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So that's 3 lots. Anybody else? And would we like to go now to Councillor Butland?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll deal, I think, first of all, with the context in which these changes are proposed. Councillor Abbott is, I know, not in public, but is quite clear as to why these changes are being brought forward. We have had significant email exchanges, him and I. We have also had, I think I'm right in saying, 3 one-to-one Zoom meetings about the issue. And the issue is the way in which certain members of the Green and Independent group have behaved, both in the social media, both on social media, in the print media, and in the council itself. So remarks such as name calling, saying that Conservatives should retire to their stables. Both of those, of course, are Councillor Walsh. Issues relating to the Better Braintree Together website, of which a member of Councillor Abbott's group is an administrator, in other words, a person who is in charge and can actually prevent items going on there, where we've had remarks from members of the public, which has been allowed to stay on that website, accusing all members. For an example, here's one of the 30th of July. Let's get rid of the criminals and put honest people in the jobs. One of the new administrators, I won't mention any names, but he's a new administrator, so he accepts some responsibility. He talks about the biggest problem, and with all due respect to you, Madam Chairman, that I'm reading this, the biggest problem is the puppet chairperson. He also went on to talk about those who reside under their stones at Causeway House. So much so that another member, another administrator of that website, needed to issue a reminder, please, that we need polite and respectful behaviour in this group. Administrators, of which there is a member in this council this evening, will remove comments which go too far. Given that none of the comments that I have referred to have been removed, I can assume that they are not considered to have gone too far. I made it clear in an email after considering things with my group that we were not prepared to work with people who behaved in that way. I know that Councillor Abbott has been put in a very difficult position, and I want to say publicly now that I believe Councillor Abbott implicitly when he said to me that he does not condone the use of such language, that he has sought the utmost, he's put a lot of effort in trying to get Councillor Walsh to apologise, and that I believe that he, because he and I have been members of this authority for a long time, that we are on the same page on that. But the issue is he prepared to do anything? And I make an appeal, I suppose, really to...
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
I do. I'm waiting to let you in. Councillor Butland, I do have a point of order from Councillor Abbott, and I might take that now. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Butland is quite deliberately listing a whole load of things which have not been said or actioned by members of the GNI group, as he did to me in the Zoom meetings. They're completely irrelevant to the question we asked of why he is making such drastic changes to membership of committees and seats. And I'm amazed that he's doing this, and he's completely out of order. All of those comments he mentioned on Better Braintree were not made, the ones he's listed, by members of the GNI group. And I have absolutely no control over the Better Braintree Facebook page whatsoever.
Councillor Abbott, are you saying that the leader is a liar?
Those words never were used, Madam Chairman, and I don't know why you're saying that.
Madam Chairman,
Councillor Butland.
Don't want to go down that line. I accept that Councillor Abbott does not have any control over what appears on the Better Braintree Together. I have not alleged that. I have said quite clearly that one of his group, who is an administrator, does have control over what appears on that group. For example, slightly hilarious, but for example, a picture that I submitted about the swans and the cygnets was not permitted to go on the Facebook page. However, this week there is a lovely picture of a swallowtail from Straits Mill, which was allowed to go on. But also, more importantly, those remarks that were made about councillors generally, not about me personally, some are about me personally, but a lot about councillors generally, have been allowed to go on. In our last meeting, our last Zoom meeting a week ago today, I offered Councillor Abbott a chance to resolve this in what I thought would be as good a way as possible. That if Councillor Walsh was prepared to make an apology, and I quoted to Councillor Abbott that I was in that position in 2003-04 when I made a remark. I'm not going to repeat the remark, but when I made a remark about Councillor Abbott, I apologised, and that apology was circulated to all members of the council. Recently, my deputy leader upset Councillor Abbott and apologised, and that apology was circulated to all members of the council. And I offered Councillor Abbott the opportunity, if that was done, we could draw a line under it, and I would happily have him back at the cabinet table and on the DDG, and we would continue on. That offer still stands. I don't want to raise the temperature tonight. I'm hopeful that there will still be an opportunity for us to reach a settlement on this, which is satisfactory to all sides, and then we can move forward. But my group is not going to sit back and just take things and not where we think it is really out of order, just to accept that.
Right,
So
thank you, Councillor Butland. I have Councillor Cunningham who wants to come in. Councillor Cunningham.
Madam Chairman, I seconded the motion. I wasn't asked, but reserve the right to speak. At this moment in time, I don't think it's appropriate that I add anything else. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, I am hoping that Councillor Abbott and Councillor Butland have said their pieces. Am I correct in that? Yes,
Well,
Councillor Abbott, have you said your piece?
I would like a right to reply if I'm allowed one, but I don't know if I'll be allowed one.
Well, I think we're going on a bit here, don't you think, everybody? I don't have anybody else who really wants to say anything. I think we've all got the gist of it. And so I'm going to move us on.
We've got one side of the story, Madam Chairman.
Well, everybody's had a go and we can't linger on this. This is something that has been discussed at other times and it can be discussed again at other times as far as I'm concerned. I'm in control of this meeting and I think you've both had a good enough session together. So I'm now going to ask Councillor Butland to end. Councillor Butland?
I have nothing else to add other than move the recommendations 1 to 7 as appear on page 8 of the agenda.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to proceed to a vote and we're going by the roll call. We're conducting it with the roll call. And so I'm now going to hand over to the Chief Executive, who is Andy Wright, and hopefully you're all online.
Good evening, members. As usual, I will call out each councillor's name and if you can indicate for or against.
Apologies, Andy. That was very distorted. Would you like to announce that again, please?
Sorry, members, is that clearer? Can you hear me now?
Apologies, Andy. That is still coming across as distorted.
I can hear well.
Muffled, very muffled, Councillor Hicks.
Do you want to take?
Good evening, members. Due to technical difficulties, I'll be taking the roll call for us today. So if I can start, Councillor Abbott.
Against.
Councillor Beavis.
Abstain, Chairman.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Coulthard.
For.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Tom Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Dervish.
For.
Councillor Euston.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Garud.
For.
Councillor Hensman.
For.
Councillor Hicks.
Against.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Mann.
Abstain.
Councillor McGee.
For.
Councillor Monday.
For.
Councillor Mrs Parker.
For.
Councillor Pell.
For.
Councillor Pritchard.
For.
Councillor Radley.
For.
Councillor Raymond.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Sandham.
Abstain.
Councillor Santamoro.
For.
Councillor Scattergood.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Swear.
For.
Councillor Spray.
For.
Councillor Tattersley.
For.
Councillor Thorogood.
Against.
Councillor Unsworth.
Against.
Councillor Van Dolken.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
Against.
Councillor Walters.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Weeks.
Abstain.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
And Councillor Wright.
Against.
Thank you.
So this is in favour, and we have approved it. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Councillor Butland and the members. We're now going to proceed to item 8, which is the White Paper, Planning for the Future, Braintree District Council's consultation response. Now, you'll find this item is set out on pages 16 to 40 of your agenda, quite a lot. And I'd like to invite Councillor Mrs. Spray, who is the portfolio holder for planning, to introduce the report and to move the recommendations set out on page 16 of the agenda. Councillor Spray, would you like to present your report?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I would like to start by formally moving the recommended decisions, which is on page 16 and carries on to the top of page 17 of your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that,
Councillor Scattergood. Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Scattergood.
Yes.
Do you wish to reserve your right to speak? Councillor Scattergood?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Now,
yes, please.
Thank you. Please speak. Yes, I think there was just a pause. So thank you very much, Councillor Scattergood. Now, do any members wish to speak on this item? If you do, please indicate by the chat function, and I'll take each member in turn as they appear on my screen.
Chairman, Councillor Mrs. Spray here. Can I just present my report? I have a short introduction, please, first, before we go to the chat function. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. I don't intend to take too long over the introduction because you've all had a chance, I hope, to read the agenda paper. In addition, we held the members' briefing session on the 18th of September, which had a very good attendance. So I'm hoping that everyone is at least reasonably familiar with the main points of the white paper. Just to briefly recap, Planning for the Future was published by the government on the 6th of August and proposes some major reforms to the current planning system. It would be the biggest overhaul of the system for many years. The consultation is currently open and closes on the 29th of this month. There are 3 pillars within the white paper. Pillar 1 is planning for development. Pillar 2, planning for beautiful and sustainable places. And Pillar 3, planning for infrastructure and connected places. Within each of those pillars, there are a number of proposals set out with corresponding questions to help us focus on consultation responses. Now, I don't know how other planning authorities are managing their consultation process, but I think it's fair to say that this district, we are going the extra mile, which we often do. Our constitution actually says that the response to this type of consultation is a function which has to be delegated to the portfolio holder, in other words, me. But given the importance attached to planning by residents and businesses in the district and the scale of the changes proposed, it was considered entirely appropriate to hold the members' briefing session on the 8th with officers present to talk through the white paper and also to have a debate as part of tonight's meeting. There are proposals in the white paper that we find acceptable, I think it's fair to say, but there are other proposals that will give us cause for concern. I think with that in mind, Madam Chairman, I'll stop now and I will look forward to hearing what council colleagues have to say, and I will wrap up the debate at the end and respond to comments and questions when members have finished speaking. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. And the first person I have is Councillor Wendy Schmidt. Councillor Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thank Councillor Mrs. Spray for raising under questions 7A and 16 the lack of information of what is meant by sustainable development is at the heart of the government proposals and would, quote, include consideration of environmental impact. Only consideration. I find it very depressing that this consultation does not merit at least one question specifically about environmental matters and climate change. In most cases, irreparable damage that is being done to the natural world is, in my view, the most important event that is occurring. Stating that 30% of Britain will be protected for nature by 2030 will be too late. Species cannot be brought back from extinction. I know from personal experience that under the present planning system, developers produce what appears to be a detailed environmental report, but it is in fact only a snapshot of a month or two in a year, and so almost meaningless. Councils do not have the ability to challenge this information and are left to agree that by putting a usually manicured green space and a few trees or orchards will mitigate the destruction of fields, hedges and trees. Local residents have years of knowledge, but if applications go to inspectors who appear to be answerable to no one, this trove of knowledge is ignored, whereas democratically elected local members would at least acknowledge it. I feel that no new houses should be built after this white paper without ground source, solar heating, etc. Yes, houses will become more expensive, but without these and other measures, the future looks poor. I could go into the minutiae of all the matters that require consideration, but this isn't the place to do that. This is about the principle that the environment and climate change mitigation should be at the heart of this white paper. This consultation is an opportunity for Britain to set an example to the world on providing climate change friendly homes for its citizens and at the same time increasing biodiversity. Otherwise, it will be too late. I sometimes wonder why I allow myself to get upset by the damage that is done to the natural world, as I won't be here to witness the end result. But I want children in 50, 100 years from now to have the wonderful childhood that I had, playing in the fields, seeing the amazing birds, animals, flowers and trees as I did. Councillor Mrs. Spray, you've made a good start to writing the serious omissions in this consultation, but I implore you to go further with your response. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I have Councillor Schwer next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In the paper, the new infrastructure levy is promising a lot. 25% to parish councils, affordable housing at present levels, funding, all sorts of infrastructure requirements from a development, even being used to fund local plan enforcement and potentially used to reduce council tax. Is this amount of funding realistically going to be secured from developers by a nationally set level? It may need a substantial rethinking in the amount of money a landowner could expect from a site and a developer to spend on the site. The document also mentions about the national development management policies, which could be useful to local authorities, especially in relation to sustainable homes, renewable energy and water efficiency. That all new homes would have to meet. I believe many want to work towards a carbon neutral economy by 2050 or sooner, but the paper is light on detail on ways to achieve this. Detailed guidance on how to implement this would be welcome. Regarding the 3 types of land use in the local plan, it is also very important that the protected areas cover areas of open countryside. Greater certainty is required on how this could be achieved to protect and enhance the countryside and its environment. However, we do need to allow gentle growth, which will support our important rural village businesses and communities into the future. Madam Chairman, just before I finish, I do hope that after this consultation, the planning system is more fit for purpose, that it will cut red tape, expense and time, and that we can build Braintree District back better with greener, sustainable infrastructure and homes for the future, whilst improving the lives of all those who live and work here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now have Councillor Wrench. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Under Pillar 2, Planning for Beautiful and Sustainable Places, there are several suggestions about improving the production and the use of design guides and codes. For example, Proposal 12 talks of setting up a body to support the delivery of locally popular design codes and proposed that each authority should have a chief officer for design and placemaking. On a similar theme, Proposal 14 talks of introducing a fast track for beauty through changes to national policy and legislation to incentivise and accelerate high quality development which reflects local character and preferences. In our response, are we able to point out that this authority is already being recognised for the high quality of design achieved on developments and how well officers and developers work together to achieve these results? Two excellent examples of this are the Straits Mill development for 1,000 homes and the Horizon 120 site, both of which have been shortlisted by the Royal Town Planning Institute as finalists for the East of England Award for Planning Excellence 2020. To have not one, but two developments recognised in this way is great news and something which our senior officers cannot remember happening for quite a long time. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Parker is next. Councillor Iona Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I would like to thank the Cabinet member actually for giving us the opportunity to have a debate on this very important white paper. Thank you very much. I'm really going to confine my comments to some specific items in the paper, and I will refer to specific questions within the paper. But broadly, I would like to thank all those who've worked on the paper. I think they've done a very good job. They've picked up a lot of points that I would have been concerned about. And also, I think there is the points where they are in agreement with the paper. I also would agree with a lot of what's said, particularly the recognition of the importance of design and the importance of the quality of the built environment, which is as important to everybody really as the natural environment. The built environment is very important. So over to my questions. Regarding question 6, which is the question which deals with development management policies, the draft paper expresses the need to retain local control over matters relating to design, which I think really will be covered under a design code. But I would like to question whether there are any other areas which should be dealt with at a local level and which would require local development management policies. And I would like to question whether the alternatives expressed in Proposal 2 of the paper would in fact be a better approach, i.e. that local authorities should retain the ability to set development management policies, except where they duplicate national policy. So that's my first question. The second question relates to questions 9 and 10, which is, and regarding decision making. I'm very concerned that residents should not feel that they are disenfranchised from the decision-making process. And I do strongly feel that those who live in an area should be entitled to have some say on the development that affects their area. And in my experience, residents, as much as we would like them to get involved in the local plan stage, do tend to leave it to when there's a development happening in their area. I would like members, council members, planning committees to retain the ability to determine applications both in protected zones, but also in renewal zones where the scheme of delegation permits. Regarding question 10, question 10 deals with the digitisation of the application process, and I would very much agree that improvements to digitisation can definitely speed up, improve the planning process. But I do think it is very important, again, that we don't leave residents out of the picture. And I think it's very important that we should emphasise that planning notices are still required. I think that is the only way that residents really know that something is about to happen in the area. You cannot expect them to weekly trawl through a list of planning applications on a website. They simply won't do it. And then they'll be very upset when something happens in their area which they didn't know about and feel they didn't have an opportunity to comment on. So I would like that suggestion to be added. Just generally, I obviously, affordability of housing is extremely important, especially when you look at the cost of housing and compare it with the average wage. However, I do slightly have concern that the way in which the method of calculating the volume of housing, the extent to which it would depend on affordability, may lead to further concentration of economic power within the southeast of the country and would be contrary to the government's levelling up agenda. So I do have a bit of concern about that. But broadly, very happy with the response. Thank you very much. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Now I'll tell you who the next three are so you can get ready. I've got Councillor Abbott, Councillor Mann, followed by Councillor Sandham. Okay, so Councillor Abbott first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the article in the LGA magazine said last month, this is a carve-up of, they didn't use that word, but that's what they were implying, of the planning system. The government appears to disregard the high number of housing sites which are being granted by local planning authorities across the country, including BDC, which has granted huge numbers of houses on sites in the last few years. They also appear to treat the planning system as a problem. In fact, the Prime Minister has made several references, negative references, to the current planning system, despite the fact that there are about 1 million houses which now have planning permission which are not yet built, and the aforementioned very high rate of granting permission which LPOs are already doing. I think Councillor Parker's point was really important about affordability. So this is not just a numbers game, it's an affordability game. As anyone who follows me on Twitter will know, I regularly report on the house prices for sites in this area. And we're talking 400,000, 500,000 pounds for 3 and 4 bedroom houses is very typical in the Whittam, Silverend, Cresting, etc. area. These are prices which most local people have no chance of being able to afford. So just building housing estates doesn't necessarily provide people with the housing they need. And then coming on to Councillor Schmidt's point, whilst I agree with almost every word she said, I'm simply amazed that she, and I've been saying these things for decades, as you know, I'm simply amazed that as a portfolio holder, she's not making sure those things happen at Braintree District Council. Because on site after site after site, hedges and trees are being ripped out, where I believe the council could do more to protect them. And I've been reporting those on social media, bringing them to the attention of the council for years, and nothing seems to, or very little seems to improve. And the amount of mature native hedgerow we've lost in the south part of the district, which I've been cataloguing and photographing in the last 2 years, is simply catastrophic, including bat habitats. So my question to her as a portfolio holder is, why is the council allowing that to happen? And finally, Madam Chairman, on the issue of ecological assessments, and again, I agree with Councillor Schmidt, it's very worrying about what the government are doing. We only need to look at the Prime Minister's own words when he complained about newt counting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now Councillor Mann, and then I said Councillor Sandham after Councillor Mann. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Anything that strengthens the local plan process is to be welcomed, and there is some of that in this document. But it's got to be seen against the background that 70% of local planning authorities don't currently have an up-to-date local plan. We're not alone, we're in the 70%. Now, measures to make local plans shorter, more visual and interactive, I'm sure we can all support. But surely we need a locally led planning system, and that planning system to be itself plan-led and on a case-by-case basis. Do we want to marginalise the input of local councils and undermine local democracy? The need is for councils and communities to oversee all local developments, including permitted developments. As has been, I think, referred to, what is missing in the response is the measures to get developers and landowners to build out permissions. Councillor Abbott's given us the figures from the LGA. Over the last 10 years, 1 million homes with planning permissions haven't been built. And as for the efficiency of the system, 90% of applications are granted by local planning authorities. So the fault doesn't lie with us. And we need also to make it harder for developers to dodge their responsibilities as regards infrastructure, particularly in relation to the provision of affordable housing. And any proposed infrastructure levy needs to secure at least the same and ideally more funding for the council to deliver infrastructure, and that money preferably up front. Thanks very much to the portfolio holder for including many of our comments in the submission. And thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now it's Councillor Sandham. Let me just say, everybody's being patient. I've got the most massive list. I'd ask you all to be quite concise. Otherwise, we'll be going through every councillor. So please be very concise. And now Councillor Sandham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Spray and the Planning Department for giving us the opportunity to discuss and comment on the draft response to the white paper. There are some really positive suggestions and points made, and I very much support what other members have raised this evening as well. I just wanted to add to these based on concerns that have been raised with me by local residents and also my own suggestions for making the changes more appropriate to us here in Braintree District. The three key issues I wanted to raise are water stress, food security, and protecting wildlife from extinction. So firstly, water stress. Essex is already the driest county in the UK, and we're likely to be heavily impacted by climate change in the very near future. The Council's response to question 16 does cover this, but it should also be a major factor in the response to question 8 on determining housing numbers for our local planning authority. We can't afford to build more houses than the water infrastructure can support in the near future, and this issue doesn't really seem to be considered at all currently in the white paper. Secondly, food security. Already, almost half of the food consumed in the UK is imported, and this proportion is rising. Increased reliance on local food production is going to become even more critical in the face of global warming, local population growth, and the ever-present threat of this and future pandemics. The Council's response to question 8 should therefore stress the need to protect and indeed expand Braintree District's greenfield and agricultural land. We shouldn't be allowing ourselves to become even more dependent on other countries for shipping us food supplies in what is an increasingly unstable world. Thirdly, wildlife protection. As we know, many of our most iconic British wildlife species face loss of habitat and some face potential extinction. Promising initiatives like those started by the Wildlife Trust and Wild East have the potential to reverse this trend. So I'm glad to see that Council's draft response has requested more clarity about the designation of nature and green areas. Can we also specifically ask that these areas are increased and enhanced within the new growth and renewal areas as well as in the protected areas, and that organisations such as the Wildlife Trust, the RSPB and other respected environmental and wildlife groups are fully consulted and their views and ideas are taken into account. Finally, I'd just like to congratulate the Council on the impressive draft response to the white paper, and I hope that our suggested changes will be taken on board by the government to ensure that we build a healthy, sustainable environment in which all of our residents, our farmers and our wildlife can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I have Councillor Tattersley. You're muted.
Dear me. I think Councillor Abbott and Mann have already touched on this point. But one of the most frequent comments I receive at parish council meetings and constituents in relation to planning matters is about our assessed housing need being below target. It seems to get quoted at every planning appeal and most planning applications as a reason why even the most speculative planning application should be approved. This to me is a real issue because in fact the council is approving enough applications to exceed the target by some way. The problem, as has already been said, is that some developers are sitting on land with planning approvals, probably waiting for the prices to go up, I'm not sure, but not actually carrying out any development. I hope that this point can be made more emphatic in our response to the consultation document.
Thank you very much. And I would remind all the rest of you again, if you've heard a point already that you want to make, do please just say it's already been said or some such nicety, okay? So Councillor Hicks I have next, and then there'll be Councillor Walsh. Councillor Hicks.
I didn't respond, thanks.
All right. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would also like to say that I express my appreciation for the draft and also to Councillor Spray for the opportunity to discuss this at the members' evening. I will confine my remarks to 3 areas where I strongly support the response and just one area where I think it could be slightly made slightly stronger. The first 3, I strongly support not increasing the remit for permitted development. That's question 20. Secondly, having an appropriate, albeit simpler mechanism for considering environmental impacts, I think is important. That's the additional point after question 20. And the third one that I think is very important concerns the infrastructure levy. This needs to include the right amount of affordable housing, ideally on site. The one area, finally, the one area that I think could be slightly strengthened is concerning neighbourhood plans, the last paragraph under question 6. And I would suggest a very slight amendment to our wording. Therefore, going forward, we would like to see that, instead of need to understand whether, like to see that the role of neighbourhood plans as being fully considered, and then the wording carries on as is. Just a slight enhancement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Everard. Where's Councillor Everard?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, a lot has been said already, but I must concur with Councillor Abbott and Councillor Mann. There are so many developments that were passed many years ago, big developments, and still nothing happening. That's one thing. Councillor Parker also mentioned about locals wanting to know what's happening. So I think it's very important that a notice is posted locally to the application site. But can I also say that I think that the questions that were drafted by the officers are very good. I think perhaps I am worried that we are being denied a lot of control locally. This is in this new plan. I'll finish there because I think, yeah, so many things.
Thank you very much. I've got some more people to come yet, so keep at it. And again, don't say anything if somebody else has already said it, please. Councillor Euston, I have next.
All of the points that I wish to make, Madam Chairman, have already been made, so I will leave it there. Thank you.
How nice of you, Councillor Euston. Thank you very much. Now I've got Councillor Cunningham, Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an absolute pleasure to follow colleagues this evening on what's been a very, very interesting debate. And thank you again to Councillor Mrs. Spray and the planning team for the opportunity this evening. I would just like to offer a general comment. about a real frailty I see in the current planning system. And I have to say that is to do with the role of the planning inspector. This is one individual who has the ultimate decision-making power and can pass the ultimate judgment. In reference to section 1 of our local plan, whilst we totally appreciate the experience and conscientiousness of Mr. Clues during this process with the local plan from the North Essex authorities, this was a major significant plan of national notoriety, and Mr. Clues, I understand, is his last plan before retirement, and we wish him very well. We wish him a very long and happy retirement on completion of section 1. But my particular comments relate to Mr. Clues' judgment of the viability and deliverability of new communities. As far as I understand, Mr. Clues was not personally required to invest his own personal money in bringing forward these new garden communities. Therefore, is Mr. Clues or any one particular person in a position to dismiss totally the judgments and evidence and significant expertise of those commercial developers, enablers, and practical deliverers in the construction industry who wish to be part of a wider programme, such as the North Essex Garden Communities? The overall approach of the garden communities was to tame the control and direction of developers who may only have been focused solely on a bottom line in order to deliver something relevant and better for decades to come. Working with the developers to lock in social value whilst appreciating that no business model can totally subvert the codes and conventions of commercial reality. Yet if developers were prepared to work within that framework whilst adhering to those commercial realities, and their judgments on what is viable were prepared to be backed up by financial investment, does it not seem wrong that only one person, one man alone, can use his own personal judgment to dismiss the viability of those who have a long history of demonstrating delivery? Therefore, Madam Chairman, I believe if a Conservative government passionate about the delivery of housing and unlocking great potential, levelling up across the United Kingdom, is really committed to reforming planning, which I think we can be confident it is, a system that allows that one man, that one person alone to make judgments has to be flawed, and that system has to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Spray. I have in fact come to the end of my list of everybody, but I have now Councillor Spray.
Right, thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman, and well done for fielding what was quite a long list. And I will now do my very best to give responses to those who contributed. I would like to start by thanking everybody for their questions and comments, and also just generally to thank those who said nice things about me and the draft responses that I've produced. Actually, this was a lot of very hard work by our officers, and bearing in mind that we had 2 consultations on the go, one on changes to the current planning system, which is just the deadline for that has just finished, and now this one, along with their normal very heavy workload, they've done an absolutely terrific job of pulling together this paper with some input from me, but I just want to acknowledge the tremendous hard work of officers.
Councillor Spray, just before you progress any further, Councillor Scattergood as seconder to the motion hasn't had her opportunity to speak. I just wonder if the chairman might want to invite Councillor Scattergood to come forward.
If that's all right with Councillor Spray, we'll
it is, and
we'll interrupt with you now, and then we'll put Councillor Scattergood in.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't wish to add anything further. Most of the points that I was going to raise have been covered. And I'm sure that Councillor Mrs Spray will take them all on board when she responds. I know a lot of work's gone into this paper, and I agree with many things said by members tonight, especially by Councillor Mann. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Oh,
It's
that's
been
wonderful.
a long debate.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Scattergood. Okay, so
Right,
handing back to you
back
then,
to me.
Councillor Spray.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Scattergood, for your comment. Right, so I'll try and get these in the right order. I'll start with Councillor Schmidt, and I've been scribbling notes like mad. I think all of us here actually are well aware of Councillor Schmidt's passion for our environment and looking after our district. So her comments actually will probably come as no great surprise to, I think, to all of us. She raises some very important points about environmental matters and climate change. And actually, I would agree that these issues are not necessarily given sufficient importance in this paper. I think it is surprising, at the very least, that there isn't a specific consultation question on these matters. It's mentioned in a number of places throughout the report, but there is no specific question on it, which I say is surprising. I would say that producing a sustainability appraisal is a very complex matter. It's also very costly, it's very time consuming. So I think we would look favourably on replacing that with a simpler process, but, and there's a very big but here, not at the expense of proper consideration of the environmental impacts that development has on our district. We do need to take into account climate change and how we can reverse the decline of impacts on nature. Now, both of these points are mentioned in our response to question 16, as is the stress on water issues, which is something raised by Councillor Sandham. So those are mentioned, but they are really important points, and I'm actually very happy to take those points away, Councillor Schmidt, and strengthen our response in the paper on those. Happy to do that. Next, I think, was Councillor Schwer, who made, I think, 3 points. So I'll start with the infrastructure levy. Well, it promises a lot, doesn't it? There are, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 pages on the proposed new infrastructure levy in the paper. Yeah, promises a lot, but can it deliver? Because it's not just about infrastructure, it's about affordable housing. It says it's going to fund local plans, enforcement teams. What else do I see? Oh, it could even possibly be used to reduce council tax. Well, that's all very well and good, but if it is going to do all of those things, we need, firstly, more detail on how it's going to be implemented. I think the paper is a bit short on detail, and it's also going to need to bring in substantially more receipts than we currently get from Section 106 agreements, which we use in this district, and community infrastructure levy, which we don't use, but may do at some time in the future. So I think he makes an extremely good point that we would need to see a great deal more money coming forward. And I think he also said up front, somebody did, if it wasn't Councillor Schwer, somebody did, because the paper suggests that maybe this money doesn't come forward until the first homes are occupied. And I don't think that's going to be good enough. Councillor Schwer also talked about carbon neutral and zero emissions. And somewhere, I will just find it. Please bear with me. I have a note on it. Yes, there is a suggestion in the paper that we should be carbon neutral and zero emissions by 2050. Well, actually, we think that that's not strong enough. We would prefer to see something by 2030, and we believe that that's an ambition which could be achieved. So we would like to strengthen that. And as I said in my response to Councillor Schmidt's question, we are quite prepared to take that on board. Renewable energy, there's nothing in the white paper about large-scale proposals, wind and solar farms, how we're going to deal with those. And I know that's something that Councillor Stray has spoken on before. So we would like to include something on that. He also mentioned the 3 different types of landscape. Now, we absolutely support the suggestion of protected areas, but they need to cover areas of open countryside. And we would welcome some clarity on how that's going to work if within a renewal area that's proposed for development, it also contains an area of countryside or parks or conservation areas. How is that juxtaposition going to work? That point has been made, but I'm happy to take it away and see if we need to strengthen it. Have I covered all Councillor Schreier's points? Oh, he did just mention at the end about, yes, this is an opportunity to cut red tape and build back better. Yes, I absolutely agree. I do think there are proposals that we would welcome that could streamline some of our more complex planning processes at the moment. But as I say, it needs to be done bearing in mind the impact on the environment. But I absolutely take that point. Councillor Wrench. Yes, thank you. You mentioned design. Well, I think you make a very good point about the design standards. However, you know, I implored the ambition in the white paper to achieve good quality design, but I do worry that nationally produced design codes and criteria may produce the opposite effect, and we could finish up with bland, rather look-alike homes and buildings. I would not want us to lose the diversity of design that we currently have in this district. And I think one of the problems with a national design book, which is mentioned, is that what might suit one area of the country, so the middle of Chelmsford or even rural Sussex, is not necessarily going to suit a village in rural Braintree or even Braintree or Halstead towns. The Essex Design Guide, which we have currently, is an excellent document. It's often mentioned at Planning Committee as a benchmark of what we want to see on development sites, and I wouldn't want to lose that. And I think it's also worth mentioning that we have a very good reputation with, you know, within this district of working well with developers. Councillor Wrench mentioned the 2 awards that we're in the running for. We also had the Towlands development, which was approved very recently at Planning Committee, which for an outline application contains some really high quality detailed design. So I will take those suggestions on board, and I think we will find a way to communicate our concerns on design to the government, either within our responses or maybe separately. But I'm very keen that we take that on board. Right, moving on. Councillor Parker also mentioned design and the quality of the built environment, very important, around question 6. And I will take that away and have a look and make sure that we can, as I say, concentrate on design and raising the standards over and above perhaps what is mentioned within the white paper. I absolutely agree that we need to continue involving local residents, and also that the Planning Committee retains at least some control and determination on planning applications. And I very much agree with her point about site notices, and we do intend that those should be retained, and we will be making that point very strongly in our response. I think it's important that they stay. They may not be the most popular thing with planning officers, and that's not just in this district, it's around the country, I think, going around putting them up, but I think it's very important that we keep on with that. And in terms of affordability, yes, well, it's critical that required amounts of affordable homes do come forward on sites. We currently in this district have a requirement for either 30 or 40% affordable homes, depending on where the site is. And we're not particularly happy within the white paper with how affordable housing is to be delivered. We're not too sure about the method, and I think, you know, we gave a fairly strong and robust response to this in the consultation on changes to the current planning system, which, as I say, finished just a few days ago. So I think we need to reiterate that again.
Can I ask you, Councillor Spray? We're all very fascinated. Could I ask
Do you want me to speed up, Madam Chairman? Is that what you're asking me?
Do a generalisation, if you would be so kind.
All right. Well, I'll do my best, Madam Chairman.
Thank
so
you.
I will move on to Councillor Abbott's points. The LGA article, a carve up. Well, I'm actually not. I think that's a bit strong. There are things we don't agree with in the white paper, but there's much that we do. I'm not going to defend Councillor Schmidt because she is more than capable of doing that herself. I actually think she does an excellent job in her role as portfolio holder. And I'm not going to make any comment on newts either at this stage in the proceedings. Councillor Mann, I absolutely agree. Anything that strengthens the local plan process is good. Yes, it is. And Councillor Tattersley picked up this point as well. We give planning permissions. What often doesn't happen is that developers don't then develop, and we can wait many years to see signs of house building starting on some sites where we've given permission. I think we would be very keen to have within that white paper the suggestion that where there is a delay on developing, that there should be some financial penalty introduced for slow or non-existent progress. So I absolutely agree with that. Then, Madam Chairman, Councillor Sandham. Councillor Sandham, very good points made, some of which I've already addressed around water stress and wildlife protection. I think I've covered those points. Just one thing I would say, you made a point about protecting agricultural land. Yes, I'll take that on board, and I think we can certainly add that to our response. Councillor Tattersley, I have covered points, I think, on developers not developing. Councillor Walsh, thank you for your comments. You've asked if we could strengthen the response to question 6 around neighbourhood plans. I'll take that away, and if we think that's appropriate to change that wording, we will do. The government have said quite strongly that they would like to see neighbourhood plans continue. I think we have a little concern about how they propose to do that, but I will certainly take that point on board. And finally, Councillor Cunningham, yes, those of us who supported and still do the garden community concept, I think to say we were disappointed at the outcome would be an understatement. I do think it's a little perverse that one inspector can make a decision on such a huge proposal, which was designed to actually protect most of the district and was also designed to achieve the government's aim of building much needed homes. It rather brings me on to a point that perhaps the whole inspectorate system is overdue for a review and maybe a reform. Very much take that on board. You'll be thrilled to hear, Madam Chairman, that I have finished. Thank you. And I would just like to move the recommendations which I've moved and which Councillor Scattergood seconded on pages 16 and 17. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and very well done to you, and very well done to everyone for asking questions. You could see I had a huge number, and some people came in late, and I'm not accepting those because we have made vast numbers of points, and most of it has been covered, if not all of it, by wonderful Councillor Spray. So thank you very much, and I'm now going to proceed to the vote. So the recommendation set out on page 16 of the agenda has been moved and seconded, and we'll be conducting the votes by way of a roll call, and I am going to hand over to Kim, because as I understand it, the Chief Executive's technology is still down. This is very sad for you, isn't it? Very sad. Okay, so Kim is going to do our recording. Thank you very much.
Thank you, members. Councillor Abbott.
4.
Councillor Beavis. 4. Councillor Bebb.
4.
Councillor Bowers.
4.
Councillor Butland.
4.
Councillor Coleridge.
4.
Councillor Coulthard.
4.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
4.
Councillor Tom Cunningham.
4.
Councillor Dervish.
4.
Councillor Eusden.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Everard.
4.
Councillor Garud.
4.
Councillor Hensman.
4.
Councillor Hicks.
4.
Councillor Horner.
4.
Councillor Hume.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Mann.
4.
Councillor McGee.
4.
Councillor Monday.
4.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Pell.
4.
Councillor Pritchard.
4.
Councillor Radley.
4.
Councillor Ricci.
4.
Councillor Rose.
4.
Councillor Sandham.
4.
Councillor Santimorio.
4.
Councillor Mrs Scattergood.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Swear.
4.
Councillor Spray.
4.
Councillor Tattersley.
4.
Councillor Thorogood.
Abstain.
Councillor Unsworth.
4.
Councillor Van Dolken.
4.
Councillor Walsh.
4.
Councillor Walters.
4.
Councillor Weeks.
4.
Councillor Wilson.
4.
Councillor Wrench.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
And apologies, I missed Councillor Raymond.
Yes, thank you. 4.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. We are all in favour. So the recommendations have been approved. Thank you, Councillor Spray and members, for all that hard work and a lot of time and effort. And I'm now going to proceed us on to item 9, which is Horizon 120 Enterprise Centre. Now, this item is set out on pages 41 to 50 of your agenda, if you want to find it. And there is a corresponding report within the private session of this meeting at item 12, pages 65 to 74 of your agendas. So we're going off with a confidential item. As members will be aware, generally the council seeks to operate in an open and transparent way with as much information as possible in the public domain. But from time to time, for a number of reasons, and in this case the council's own commercial interests, it is important that key elements of information are kept confidential. The confidential elements are contained in the private report and indicated with text, which is marked in both bold and italics. It is often the case that members can debate the substantive issues surrounding the proposals without the need to specifically refer to the confidential elements. So given this, I would usually intend to keep the debate open and public. However, if any member feels it's necessary to raise specific points on the confidential elements, we will need to move into private session. And I will remind everybody of our times this evening at this point again. And this will, if required, stop the broadcast of this meeting via the council's YouTube channel. So given this, if any member intends to raise elements in the debate about the private information, then I would appreciate an early indication to ease the administration of this meeting. Now, please tell me, do any members intend to raise confidential matters during the debate on this item? Please indicate via the chat function. And I'm looking. It's not looking like anybody wants to. So I am going to go to agenda item 9. And we are not going confidential. Thank you very much, members. So I'd like now to invite Councillor McKee, who's the portfolio holder for corporate transformation, to introduce the report and to move the recommendations set out on page 42 of the agenda. So Councillor McKee, how are you? Please
Madam
present
Chair,
your
thank
report.
you. First of all, I'd like to formally move item 9 of the and the recommended decisions on page 42 and 40 and 66 of the private session. I move them now, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Councillor Raymond, I would second Councillor McKee's motion.
Or Councillor Bebb?
Yes, I'd already put on the chat function earlier that I'm happy to second this.
Oh. Oh, yes, there it is. I'm sorry, Councillor Raymond. It's Councillor Bebb who's the seconder. I missed you. I'm very sorry. My fault. Councillor Bebb, do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes, please.
Right. Do any members, other members, wish to speak on this item? If you do, yeah, do you want to go, Councillor McKee, do you want to carry on then? Would you rather
Chairman,
do that
yes,
now?
I'd like to
Yes.
introduce the motion. Right, members, thank you for the opportunity to speak, Chairman. This item before you, members, this evening is to gain council approval to include the development of an enterprise centre on Horizon 120 Business and Innovation Park in this council's capital programme 2019-20. The council has held a long-standing intention to create an enterprise centre on Horizon 120 to meet our corporate priorities, and was included in the district plan for growth 2017 to 2022 in order to attract inward investment to increase job opportunities in the district, reduce journey and commuting times, and contribute to the growth agenda. The availability of funding from Getting Building Fund was not foreseen when setting the project capital budget that was approved by Council in February 2020. However, now this funding has become available, the Council now wishes to include this project into the current capital programme and associated capital budget. Under normal circumstances, the project would have been considered by Cabinet before being presented to Council for approval of the budget inclusion. Unfortunately, the timescales demanded by the funding authority to secure the funding have made that impossible, and therefore we are seeking approval tonight before Cabinet considers the business case on the 21st of October 2020. The project will deliver a purpose-built enterprise centre sited on land allocated for this purpose on Horizon 120 Business and Innovation Park. In total, 2 developable acres in Zone A, and note that the receipt for this land sale was not included in the Horizon 120 business case due to the expectation that the council would develop this facility at some time in the future. The centre will deliver a modern, high quality, energy efficient building to achieve the minimum standard of very good under BREEAM, to create a working environment for SMEs in growth sectors of the economy, for example, green economy, life sciences and medical technologies. And the aspiration is to deliver 150 new jobs into Braintree each year. Your papers, section 1 on page 45, will provide further details of the plan design for the Enterprise Centre. In July this year, the council successfully made an initial bid and have been provisionally allocated £7 million under the government Getting Building programme, administered by the South East Enterprise Partnership. The final business case will be considered by CELEP Accountability Board on the 20th of November 2020 to award this grant towards the capital costs of the project. However, one key condition of the grant was that they were only willing to consider shovel-ready projects, with grant monies to be expended before the 31st of March 2022. Fortunately, the Horizon 120 Enterprise Unit Plan could meet this criteria. Those strict and demanding timescales for submission of business case to CELEP mean that the council must submit an approved business case on or before the 16th of October, 11 days from now. Hence the paper this evening, followed by Cabinet on the 21st of October. The investment of a significant grant into the district's project demonstrates the faith of the government in the council's ability to deliver major projects on time and to budget. And the reason this bid was successful were the project supports the recovery of the Braintree economy from the effects of COVID-19. The project is deliverable in a very short timescale. The site for the project is owned by the council, and planning permission is secured through the adopted LDO. Funding for this project will be from the Getting Building Fund and the council with its contribution to be met from capital reserves and prudential borrowing, plus the land contributed at no cost to the project. The Section 106 agreement, if you read it in your papers, I'm sure, of £2.93 million from the Panfield Lane residential development will be applied to this project when received by the council. All the options considered and risks identified are detailed in your papers on pages 48 and 49. I propose the recommend decisions on page 42, and I'll leave questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKee. Thank you very much. Councillor Bebb, did you want to come back at that point, or or would you like me to go straight to members?
I'll be happy to second that now, if you don't mind.
Yes, carry on.
I enthusiastically support this exciting, innovative project, capitalising on the opportunities of the afforded by the Getting Building Fund through CELAP, an early dividend from our membership of CELAP, which is great. It will incentivise would-be bidders for other plots on the Horizon 120 and bring them in, and I think that is just the right timing for this. The allocation will enable the council to develop a larger and higher quality facility several years before the date of delivery, if the project relied on entirely from the council's finance. And the new and enhanced facility will enable the council to play a greater role and to be more effective in assisting the local economy to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and to adjust to the post-EU exit commercial environment. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to open it up now, and I have again a long list. So if I'll repeat, if the point has been made before, do please just be kind and hand over to the next person. My first person is Councillor Van Dolken.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm sure that you and the members on both sides of the chamber will join me in greatly welcoming this proposed £7 million grant, which allows us an unexpected early kickstart to the Enterprise Centre at Horizon 120. This complex will, I have no doubt, greatly increase the visibility and prestige of the business park in its early days of development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, I'll tell you who's next a bit. Councillor Abbott, then Councillor Tattersley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't oppose this. I think it will be a good facility, and as in the introduction and the paper says, it will be BREEAM very good rated, which is good to see. But I would, again, as I have done at the Horizon 120 meetings, ask the Cabinet member for reassurance on the delivery of green features and sustainability for the site as a whole. Now, in the previous item, Councillor Gabriel Spray took me to task a bit for mentioning Councillor Wendy Schmidt's commitment to green issues. I don't at all undermine her credentials in that matter, and I fully support everything she said. My point is delivery. Words are easy. Delivery is difficult. And on the Horizon 120 site, we've already had substantial loss of trees and hedges. Now, I did raise both at planning and at H120 about that. So if we're going to talk about these things, about climate change and habitat protection and trees, then I think we actually have to act on it and not just talk about it. There's also a pond which has been filled in there, which was actually a great crested newt's habitat, which actually nicely ties in with the comment I made about what the Prime Minister had said. I believe that pond could have been saved, but in the end it's been lost. Now I know there's going to be a lot of remedial and mediation work done in terms of planting, and that's really good, but I would like assurance that we're looking at a very substantial net gain in biodiversity on that site, given that this was a greenfield site where this development is taking place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There you go, Councillor Tattersley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am really strongly in favour of this proposal and development, which I believe will prove to be extremely popular and be really attractive to many of our local and probably not so local prestige companies and their employees, and I will be supporting the proposal. The only question that I've got is I wonder how confident we are that the CELEP funding will be forthcoming.
Are you done? All right, thank you. Now, Councillor Radley.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening. Yes, I totally agree and support this project. It sounds a very exciting opportunity for the district. And indeed, the opportunity of £7 million worth of funding is from CELEP is a very good injection that supports this, and it fits the council strategy for Horizon 120 and provides support and facilities for local business and creating jobs. I do have 3 questions though, just for clarification. The first one of those relates to the on page 47.3.3 on the Section 106 agreement for Panfield Lane. I'm not familiar with this at all, but can we just have confirmation that actual agreement is already signed, first of all? And within that agreement for the 2.93 million, at what level of numbers of houses are to be built before that funding is released? Roughly what percentage of housing before the funding is released? And is it in one stage, or is it a stage payment? And the last item is regarding the revenue impact. I note on point number 3.6 there is a revenue impact. I just want a clarification. There is no detail on the size of that impact, and I guess that will come through in the business case, but just want some assurance that that is something that's going to be manageable for the council, and clarify where that funding will come from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'll tell you the next 3 I have. Councillor Hicks is first, Councillor Cunningham, Tom Cunningham, and Councillor Butland. Thank you. So Councillor Hicks is on.
Here I am. Just turned my mic on. Anyway, yeah, 2 things. I think it's really great that CELEP have given us this magnificent sum of money towards it. And like all the other members, I'm fully in support of Horizon 120. But as per James Abbott, I've also very disappointed at the amount of hedgerow and all the foliage that's been ripped out unnecessarily just to showcase off the electric charging system. And I sincerely hope that our members protect all the surrounding borders of the Horizon 120 site, because we really do need to think of the planet and the species, other species that live on this planet with us. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you very much. Now Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to echo the points made by Councillor McKee and other members tonight in welcoming the opportunity to take full advantage of this money from central government as part of the government's Get Building Fund. I think it shows a great tribute to the authority that it is an ability to grasp the opportunity using the current very fruitful and very lucrative acquisition of Horizon 120. On agreement of capital allocation tonight and of fulfilment of the terms of the CELEP agreement and funding, it enables us to deliver another key component of the Horizon 120 site that was master planned by the Horizon, helped master plan by the Horizon 120 reference group, not only helping businesses start up, encouraging business growth, but also perhaps, but beyond that, providing long-term business support to enable that growth. So this is not just enabling physical delivery of a building, it will lead to a wider residual benefit that hopefully will benefit the local area for many years to come. I would just like to say, Madam Chairman, obviously this is a decision based on a capital allocation. It's not the opportunity to explore at great length matters relating to the 65 acres site itself. But what I would respectfully say, seeing as this has been brought up by some colleagues, that there will be a net diversity benefit on the Horizon 120 site. Councillor Abbott has been in the working group meetings. He knows the commitment to that. Specifically in one part of the site where there is a great emphasis on environmental sustainability and appropriate landscaping. And I also would respectfully like to say to colleagues commit to a BREEAM standard of property of building on this site is consistent with approach that we're also taking with a BREEAM standard at iConstruct, which again is not just a building, but will be providing long-term support to the construction industry, encouraging new sustainable means of building. So I don't think we can criticise this on an environmental platform, but what I do welcome is the tacit, if not mildly enthusiastic support from the largest opposition group. I'm sure as they appreciate, following their comments over the summer, they have a new commitment to working with us to attract inward investment to the district of Braintree as part of a wider North Essex economic strategy, approach which they may have been slightly dismissive of in the past, but it's great to have them on board now. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Butland, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to pick up 2 points. First of all, I reiterate the declaration I made at the start of the meeting that I am a member of the SELUP Limited board. I think, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor McKee and the officers for getting to the stage that we are. A word of caution, of course, we have not yet got the £7 million. We have been shortlisted by SELUP, and it would be fair to say with a fair amount of support from central government for the scheme. But there are still hurdles that need to be cleared. SELUP received £89 million from the government as part of the 500 million Getting Building fund going. And so Braintree, in getting 7 million of that 89, has done a significant job. There were well over nearly 100 odd projects that came forward throughout Essex, Kent and East Sussex. And so to get this to the place where it is, I think is an extraordinary achievement, and to pay particular praise to the officers for the speed in which they've been able to take things forward. Stuff which would normally have taken perhaps significantly longer to be done, they really have pulled the stops out. And the issue now is to make sure, because there are 3 hurdles, there will be 3 organisations that will be looking at the business plan. That is initially Essex County Council. I'm very grateful to Essex County Council for the support that they have given to this project. Then there will be the SELUP board itself, the SELUP Accountability Board, of which I am not a member. That is a subcommittee of the board. And then finally, of course, by the government MHCLG. So there are hurdles to go. There will need to be a robust business case presented. And that business case will be, as the report says, considered by the SELUP Accountability Board on the 20th of November. So whilst I think we can be pleased to where we've got, I don't want us to assume that that is there. There is still significant work to be done. On the issue that was raised by Councillor Hicks, he and I think are in complete agreement on this. The issue of the removal of hedgerows along the A131, the Great Notley, and I declare I speak as the ward member, was something that I raised at the very beginning of this whole process. And I believe that the amount of hedgerow that has been removed, actually it's more like a tree line rather than a hedgerow, is sufficient to allow appropriate access and exit from the site, both as the A131 is joined from the Great Leys bypass, and also at the other end at what is commonly known as the Tesco roundabout. There is, and clearly I must be careful what I say, there is an application in for a variance to that planning application, and I invite members, if they wish, to look at that and the comments made, where they will see that I have made a series of comments about that application, which I think Councillor Hicks would be pleased to see. So that is important, because this is going to be, I think, a landmark development in terms of the quality and the greenness of it, but we can't sacrifice some of that just so, and I think we need to differentiate here between the Horizon 120 and the GridServe site, that it is the GridServe they're putting in. I believe that people will know exactly where the electric charging points are, and I strongly object to taking down any more trees just to make that building more visible, and I've made that quite clear. But of course, that will have to go through normal planning procedures before that is done. So really excited. This puts Braintree clearly again on the map, not only in terms of Essex, but in terms of the whole of the South East LEP. I look forward to Councillor McKee and his team passing the next 3 hurdles in terms of the business plan. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Now, I'm only minded to have people speak the once on this, and so therefore I'm now going to call Councillor Walsh, who has not yet spoken. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And very briefly, I generally support this scheme. In the section 5 on risks, it mentions COVID, but only in relation to construction. I wonder if we have or might need to further assess, can COVID affect the commercial demand for Horizon 120? And secondly, is it flexible enough? Is the layout and design, will it be flexible enough to cope with social distancing requirements?
All right, thank you. Are you done? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, so done. Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Now then, I'm going back to Councillor McKee to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'll sum up. I take the general tenet of the meeting that it's going to support this this fantastic proposal. I will cover just a few questions. First of all, on CELAP, I think you've heard from the leader that there is a caution, but sort of optimistic caution that this will in fact get granted. We wouldn't have done what we've done if we didn't think this was actually going to get approved. The Section 106 agreement has been signed. However, your proposal in front of you does not require the Section 106 monies to be in the bank of the District Council before this project starts. In fact, what it will be covered by, so the amount of money will be covered by prudential borrowing. And when the monies come in from that development, and I must not be honest, I don't know when it is, we'll put it in the business case, which you can then see later on. So it's not about stage payments, it's about when that milestone's made, it we're paid. We'll then, with that money, pay off the prudential borrowing. So this project does not fall on the fact that we have not got a Section 106 payment. I'm not going to cover the biodiversity of the Horizon 120 site in this evening, because I think you've heard from Councillor Cunningham. That's not what we're debating this evening. What we're debating is a business case. Should we put it into the business plan and budget so that we can take the business case forward for funding? Nothing in this proposal will change our commitment to the biodiversity and the greenness of the Horizon 120 site. And I'll talk about demand on Horizon 120. I mean, clearly this doesn't deliver till 2022 anyway. So crystal ball will tell me whether or not we have got COVID with us in 2022. But it almost certainly, the space that's being developed will be sufficient to be able to allow organisations to run against any government policy at the time that they may want to come up with. But I don't think in 2022 we'll be in the same COVID situation that we're in now. Have I covered everything? I think I have. And so I'll actually just move the recommendation for a vote, and it's on page, I think I said earlier, page 42 of your papers. I won't read it because you can all read it yourselves, but it starts with the project subject to approval on the top of page 42. I so move.
Thank you very much. Hold on one moment, please. Right. There are no new members wishing to make a point, and I'm not going back to anybody. And so we're now conduct the votes by way of a roll call. The recommendation has been set out on page 42. It's been moved and seconded. And so off we go with the roll call. And again, poor Andy is out of action. So Kim will take over and call out the names and do the recording.
Good evening. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Beavis.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Coulthard.
For.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Dervish.
For.
Councillor Euston.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Garud, sorry. Councillor Hensman.
For.
Councillor Hicks.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kilmartin. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mann.
For.
Councillor McGee.
For.
Councillor Monday.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Pell.
For.
Councillor Pritchard.
For.
Councillor Radley.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Rose. Councillor Rose.
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Sandham.
For.
Councillor Santamorio.
For.
Councillor Scattergood.
For.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Swear.
For.
Councillor Mrs Spray.
For.
Councillor Tattersley.
For.
Councillor Thorogood.
Against.
Councillor Unsworth.
For.
Councillor Van Dolken.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Walters.
For.
Councillor Weeks.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
And again, apologies, Councillor Raymond, I missed you once more.
It's all right, Kim. Yes, 4, please.
Thank you.
Right. Surprise, surprise. The recommendations have been approved. Thank you very much, members. It was very nice to listen to that debate, actually. Thank you. So now we're going to move swiftly on to item 10, which is the Cabinet Report to full Council. During this item, you can put questions to the leaders relating to a portfolio, the powers and the duties of the council or the district. And where a verbal response cannot be given in response to questions, then a written response will be issued by the relevant cabinet member. We're going to allow as much time as we can for this item. I may use my discretion to extend it or call a halt, because we do all have the opportunities to ask questions on emails. But I'd be grateful for members' cooperation to be concise as possible during this item. And so I now invite Councillor Butland as leader of the council to introduce the report. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think probably best to say any questions that are put, we will try and answer. And if they're appropriate to any of my colleagues, I will pass them to those portfolio holders to answer. But nothing else to add to the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, I don't have anybody on my screen. Oh, maybe I do. Let me have a look for a minute. I'll take some, all right? So I'll start with Councillor Mary Cunningham.
Madam Chairman, mine was for environment and place. It wasn't for the leader. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Does the Cabinet Member for Environment and Place agree that the operations team have done a sterling job in maintaining our services throughout the pandemic? And the small increase in fly tipping over last year's figures for the same months doesn't reflect at all what was anticipated with the suspension of the green bins for a short while early on in lockdown, when it was feared that fly tipping would be a real issue. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Next one I have is Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got quite a few questions for Cabinet members. Do you want me to put them all now or separately?
No. Would
Madam
it be a good
Chairman.
idea? Would it be a good idea if you put some in writing? And shall I let you? But shall I be very kind and let you ask one?
On a point of order,
I'm just going to turn my video off if I'm going to. This is about the third time now I've been either prevented from speaking or dissuaded from doing so. The normal way we do this is we go through each Cabinet member in order, and I think that works better. But obviously, I can't tell you how to run the meeting. But if you're not going to allow me to ask questions which I'd pre-prepared for days, then what's the point of me being here?
Is this a point of order?
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
A point of order to Councillor Butland.
I think Councillor Mary Cunningham, first of all, should be entitled to a response to her question from the portfolio holder. And I fully support Councillor Abbott's right to ask questions.
Thank you.
Because that is the whole point of this. We have still got 3/4 of an hour left, and providing we can get that in, I'm going to support, Madam Chairman, the Leader of the Opposition's right to put questions.
Right, I'm looking forward to them. Carry on, Councillor Abbott.
Madam Chairman, you still have Councillor Mary Cunningham's answer, which needs to come from Councillor Schmidt.
Fine, that's where we're going. Councillor Mary Cunningham is having an answer from Councillor Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, indeed. The operations team certainly had their backs to the wall. They have responded magnificently to every twist and turn that's been thrown at them. But I would also like to add that, of course, that same thing applies for the Environmental Services Department. They have had to deal with all the changing in legislation, and we're most fortunate. Our staff have managed to deal with everything that's been thrown at them, and I thank them all, as indeed you do, and I will pass on your kind comments. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Right, where was I then? Councillor Abbott.
My first question is to the Leader of the Council. In his report under 2 Roman numeral 2, he says that at the Essex Leaders meeting, local government reorganisation was discussed. Can you update us, please, on what was said there, particularly in the context of what appears to be the government postponing or delaying further discussions?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wouldn't have been so generous to Councillor Abbott if I knew I was going to get that question. No, clearly, we have had a number of discussions about local government reform. They started when it looked as if local government reform was going to proceed at a huge pace. I have to be quite honest, I have no idea at this moment what the government's final situation is. What we have agreed to do is that whatever comes out, there needs to be considerable work done regarding if we are to be asked to move into unitary authorities, that it isn't just population, it needs to be how best our service is going to be delivered. Would we want to break some of the very important services such as adult and children's social care, which in my opinion are best done on a larger scale and may not, in my view, justify being broken down. We also need to make sure that any unitaries that are established are financially stable, and you can put a group of counties, a group of districts together and end up with something which is doomed to fail financially. So we've got a lot of work to do on that. And what we have agreed is now we appear to have more time to do that. We won't know until we get a final statement from the government that we will do that work before we actually then move forward on what any future formation, future structure of local government in Essex might be. I'm a great one in actually thinking that you need to decide what functions you want carried out before you dive into structures. And I'm a great advocate that local government, that central government needs to make up its mind what it wants local government to govern. I think we've shown through in the pandemic that local government can actually do a better job than central government on many things, and I hope we can get that debate going. I hope that helps, Councillor Abbott. But there is no plan at this moment, because it does appear that the government are going to push it back slightly.
Thank you. Councillor Hensman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm on to Councillor Richards' report on page 62, paragraph G, and it's just further comments on the cycling. Cycling is my main form of transport alongside walking. Cycling in the area around me is not easy. Various cycle paths were put in as part of developments in town. Some even include toucan crossings, but these paths end on the opposite sides of these crossings with nowhere to go, with signs which advise either no cycling or cyclists to dismount, defeating the object of encouraging residents to ditch their cars. Is it for Essex County Council to continue infrastructure? Is it our planning process that determines what goes in where? Is that then when the cabinet member's portfolio picks it up and runs, or rather cycles with it, which is why I raise it here? My main question is thus: as a quick win in establishing routes across the district, we need to do something to join these fragments up. Could this be a starting point for the new reference route that was announced this evening? An existing example is what happens from Kings Park Fairview Estates via Marks Farm all the way to Becker's Green. Section 106 money was found from Wayward Close and new flats on Flockhouse Way to complete the missing links across King George's playing fields to the rugby club. This was routed to allow pupils at Becker's Green Primary easier and alternative access to the school. Other paths currently end on the wrong side of busy roads without a way to cross these safely and either continue with or be separated from existing traffic, such as from Millennium Way near to the garden centre going towards Cressy. Many do not transition well, such as from the Flitch Way onto the surrounding roads, with cyclists having a disregard for pedestrians on footpaths because it's signed as such. I therefore welcome the new reference group and the potential partnership with Essex County Council. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Would you like a response to that now? Would you like to respond now?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman, if that's okay. Thank you, Councillor Hensman. I completely agree with every single point that you've made there, and I think that the reference group that we are looking forward to set up will lend itself perfectly for aligning the strategies, not just between ourselves as a district council, but also closer with Essex County Council to really get into the skin of delivering some of those measures that will improve cycling and walking, as you mentioned, across the district. So in answer to your question, yes.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take Councillor Beavis next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Two quick questions, if I may. The first one to Councillor
Come a bit nearer the microphone, please.
First one to Councillor Tattersley. So the children of Castle Hedingham are living well due to the opening of phase 1 of the new children's play area. Could I encourage Councillor Tattersley to visit the play area, perhaps with the chairman of the parish council, to A, view the children's play area, but also B, to chat to the parish council about next steps? So that's my first question. My second question is to Councillor Bebb and relates to page 53 of our agenda papers, item 3 on housing benefit, where it says 262 new claims processed in 16.32 days and 2,181 changes of circumstance processed in 3.75 days. Can the council improve on 16.32 days for the new claims? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Would you like a response to that now? Would you like to respond?
Happy for a written on both of those. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tattersley.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to visit Castle Hedingham, but of course play equipment is in the portfolio of Councillor Schmidt, and I wouldn't want to commit to anything at this stage.
Councillor Bebb, would you like to respond as well now?
the short answer is yes, we can improve, but it's been a very unusual year in terms of people's circumstances and processing them. So that's the main reason. It will be improved when we get back to normal.
Thank you. Councillor Radley, I have next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is for Councillor Cunningham on page 58 regarding town centres. I'm pleased to see that we're now in receipt of the consultants' reports on the town centres, and they're ready for discussion with ward members. I would just urge the cabinet member to arrange a meeting with ward councillors and Towns Council as soon as possible, so that we can get this moving and complete this work by the end of the financial year, which is shown in the report. So just a question for Councillor Cunningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Radley, for his question. And absolutely, we are in receipt of proposals, and we are having internal discussions as the best means to fund these proposals in both the town of Halstead and Witham. We will have further clarity on that within the next week to 2 weeks. Soon as we have that clarity, officers have been asked to organise a meeting first with the 4 district councillors in Halstead, and in Witham the 7 at the moment district councillors in the town of Witham, to discuss proposals first. So the district councils will see them first, and we'll have a full and frank discussion. Then we'll be going to both respective town councils. We aim to move quickly and with pace, because we know both towns have been waiting for these proposals for quite some time, and we want to get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, I have next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Councillor Cunningham, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Infrastructure. Will you join me in encouraging residents of Braintree and elsewhere in the district to continue to bring things to our attention that might need remedial work or additional work around the town, despite the construction that's already underway? I say that because I was delighted to be able to phone a member of my ward today after good work by himself and Stephen Wenlock, Town Centre and Public Realm Manager, to indicate that some cobbles at the end of Panfield Lane, where it joins Rain Road, are going to be included in the town centre work and repaired or made good, where she'd had quite a horrible fall and actually resulted in a broken limb. So it was a really nice phone call to make, and it's just nice to give positive feedback to residents who raise issues such as this. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham, would you like to come back?
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I'm very pleased that we've been able to incorporate into our town centre works the repairs to the bottom of Panfield Lane where it meets up with Rain Road. I'm just very sorry that unfortunately a resident of his had to suffer injury, but as soon as I'm aware of exact completion of the works, I'll let all local ward members know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I've got a question for the Cabinet Member for Housing. The progress on affordable housing is supported and welcomed, but can the Cabinet Member please comment on the potential impact of the planning reforms if the threshold for affordable housing was to be increased to 50 per site? Potentially, how many affordable homes would be denied to Braintree District if the threshold was raised to the 50?
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Wright. It's hard to answer that question with any specifics because it would depend on the size of the sites involved. So I wouldn't be able to give you any specifics on that. Obviously, I can give you some more information in a written response, but to give you actually any specifics tonight with what you're looking for, it would just depend on the size of the site. So I wouldn't be able to do that, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh. You're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A question on planning to Councillor Spray. I do welcome her report and the update on the local plan. Just one question regarding the housing numbers. Does the Cabinet Member personally think that some 7,000 drop in housing numbers between the 2014 and 2018 ONS projections represents a material change?
Thank you. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Walsh, as you know, the inspector has asked for comments on the housing numbers and specifically on the ONS report to go back to him. The consultation is open for another few days, I think, until the, just looking at my report because I can't remember the closing date. I think, yes, open until the 12th. We have offered the inspector, I say we, the council, have offered the inspector our view on the numbers, which is that the rather narrow 2-year band, which the ONS have based their housing number prediction on, we consider to be rather a narrow band, but ultimately the decision is the inspector's. It's for him to decide on whether he feels the housing numbers that we put forward in section 1 of the draft local plan are reasonable and correct, or whether he chooses a different number altogether, and we will await his response with interest. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Answorth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have 2 questions I'd like to pose to Councillor Smith and Councillor Ricky. To Councillor Smith, I'd like to comment on the illegal waste burning at Stystead. First of all, I would like to thank the officers involved in their response, despite on this despicable act where the waste was burnt on a hole dug in a piece of land in the middle of a field. Please, can the Cabinet member give us an update on the Stysted's fly tipping and illegal burning of waste, an idea of what is being done to improve the overall enforcement of this sort of activity, and has she had any response from the MP that attended site promising a response to the local community, and as yet they haven't had one? That's to Councillor Smith. And I'd also like to ask Councillor Ricky about the cycling on page 62 of his report. He refers to a cycling project in Braintree. Please, can he elaborate as to what that is and what that project is? He also mentions a reference group to be established. Is this for one project or as to progress cycling across the district? And can he confirm that it will include Sustrans, local communities, community-led groups, and include cross-party membership? Can I ask if the administration will be able to look at bidding for Midi Holland, as we've heard earlier tonight, as a project referenced by the public speaker, and demonstrate a commitment to this level of modal shift and its benefits? I also note that Halstead, Braintree and Whitton get mentions in his response to Mr Cohn, but disappointingly not Coggeshall as a district key services village. So will he join me in acknowledging and congratulating Earlscoombe to Kelvedon and the success of the local community, the Essex County Council Conservative member, independent and green councillors that have worked to establish the link from Earlscoombe to Coggeshall that is now one of the best developed and most progressed routes in the highways panel. It has 106 monies. It is included in the Braintree District Cycle Plan and a Facebook following page of some 6,000. I believe that that deserves a mention and support. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a bit long. Now I'd like to know whether Councillor Schmidt and Councillor Ritchie would like to do some answers for that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. It has been dealt with by, shall I say, a higher authority than BDC, but I will get a written response and an update for you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Answorth, I will try my best to answer a few of those. If I miss anything else, then I will be sure to capture those via a written response. First of all, the cycling project in Braintree is part of the wider scope of working out a wider strategy for not just Braintree town centre as it improves, but as I mentioned earlier on in my statement, across the district. More than happy to acknowledge your mention about the good work that's been done so far on that aforementioned route. In my statement, I did say Halstead and villages, Whittam and villages, and Braintree and villages. I could have taken up a lot more time and listed out a number of initiatives across the whole of the district, but just mindful of time, but happy to acknowledge that the good work that's gone into the Coggeshall route. The reference group, of course, as we're looking to establish that, we will be looking across to be as consultative across as many stakeholders as we possibly can. Don't know exact formation of that, but like I said, once we've got terms of reference agreed, it might thresh out what the membership of that group will be. And I'm happy to inform you of that once we've got to that point in time. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take Councillor Weeks now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, that's okay then. It's aimed for Councillor Smith. I support and welcome the verge cutting trial, and it appears to have gone well. And I also support future consultation. I just want to ask if the Cabinet Members' report means that the whole of the district could be on a single verge cut by next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you,
Ritchie.
Councillor Weeks. That would be my aim. That is what I wish for. But of course, it is down to County Council. I fought them for long enough about it. I will continue the fight. On the whole, it has been well received by people. They understand that every little green space really does matter. And that is what I'm fighting for. But it does rest in the hands of Essex County Council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott.
If I could answer a question of Councillor Schmidt, please. Over the summer, BDC officers were extremely helpful when I asked them if they could do some tidying up work near the A12 at Rivenhall End, which Highways England had allowed to let go for a long time. We have a similar situation now, sort of on the boundary of Rivenhall and Witham, the northern entrance to Witham, where as you come off the A12, where there's a lot of litter, there's a lot of unauthorised fly-posted adverts, there's silt in the gullies, weeds growing out of the road. It's not a very good advert coming to Witham, and I think the town deserves better. I believe that would probably need Highways England, County and Braintree to look at. I have written to all three, but haven't had any commitments yet. Would that be a project she would be able to, using her cabinet office, to progress? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Yes.
Abbott. It's been some time since I've been that way, but last time I was very displeased with it and certainly had the fly posts removed at the time, but obviously they're back. I will do my very best. As you say, it is a key gateway into the district, and we'll see if we can try and organise something. No doubt, it usually ends up with BDC doing it, but we'll do what we can, because I agree with you. It's a key area to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Van Dulken.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It's a question for Councillor Bebb as portfolio holder for finance. In the current circumstances, could he assure the council and indeed the residents of Braintree that the finances of the council are still robust and under control after the inevitable loss of income and indeed the additional costs incurred during the last 6 months? Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly, yes, I can certainly reassure residents and the council that our finances are pretty robust. We wouldn't like to be where we are in other circumstances, but compared to several other councils, we're doing reasonably well. On page 53, at the top of page 53, you see details of our latest return to MHCLG, and it would appear that, in fact, the operative figures are that the total impact of COVID on the authority is around £3.5 million, down around £1.5 million on income and at about extra £1 million on costs. So that means that we've got a net impact on the bottom line, as far as we're concerned, of we had £1.6 million from the government. So we're in fact about, when we take account of some savings we've made, we're just under £1 million under what we should be, just under £1 million. Now, the good news today, I'm talking to Trevor Wilson, that we've just put in our request, our report for the incoming compensation fund, and for the period between April and July, we've put in, and we should be able to get another £400,000 So that should improve matters somewhat. So we're about £500,000 out at the moment. Not as bad as many councils. And in terms of other respects, yes, our investment income is down, but being a prudent authority, Treasury Management have a reserve, and in the good times, we've been able to put money into that reserve, which we're now drawing down. So that's reassuring. So compared to some other councils, we had a meeting of other heads of finance around the county recently, and some are quite worried. The most worried authority is actually the county council, because the county council are very, very dependent on council tax income. And that is obviously quite well down. As far as we're concerned, council tax and business rates hit both the collection funds, the council tax collection fund. When it's the going is good, we put into that fund. When the going is tough, we take out of that fund, and the same for business rates. The good news is that the government have allowed us up to 3 years to be able to recoup that the shortfall on the money going into those funds. So hopefully, when we're through this, matters should improve. So yes, we could be a lot worse off, but I can reassure the council that we're doing reasonably well in the circumstances.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sandham is next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thanks to Councillor Schmidt for her update and the very positive news about the success of the verge cutting trial. My question is about the Climate Change Working Group and whether she will be pushing for their recommended actions to be given a high priority in next year's financial budget. This council declared a climate emergency over a year ago now, and the longer we take to invest properly in the changes we need to make, the bigger the required investment is going to get. It was great to hear what Councillor Schmidt said earlier this evening about the importance of strong and urgent action to tackle climate change. Can she reassure residents in our district that this will be put forward as a high priority in next year's budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schmidt.
Well, I suppose in a short answer is I can't promise that, because we've been doing this sort of thing for a great number of years. We've put up solar panels. We've done so many of the things that can be done. The panel will not be, the climate change panel will not be finishing its recommendations until the beginning of the new year, when the budget process will be well on its way. As I said, we have done a huge amount already, long before anybody even dreamt of the expression climate change emergency. What we're now looking at is what we can do in a broader area, and that doesn't just mean BDC. This means other organisations who have not been able to do things. Once the recommendations are done, if funding is needed, then we will make the appropriate requests for it, and hopefully we will succeed. But I cannot promise anything at the moment until we have finished the work.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Garrod.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a question for Councillor Cunningham. Does the Council's Cabinet welcome the Prime Minister's Lifetime Skills Guarantee announcement last week? And can the Cabinet comment on the importance of addressing the skills requirement for employers and employees locally, particularly as the businesses are focusing on COVID recovery and many adult workers are having to retrain to sadly find new employment opportunities? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Garrod, for her question. And I totally agree with the sentiment of her question. And we certainly welcome the announcements by the Prime Minister earlier, Prime Minister last week. These are the sort of announcements I think that we were desperate to hear in 2020. And obviously the pandemic has only accelerated the need to hear this approach in terms of how we deal with this skills deficit, how we recalibrate the local economy. And as she rightly says, look at the very sad situation where many adults are having to change work for the first time in their life and having to reskill. At a local level, we had a meeting of the Braintree District Education Skills Board, and representation from both local businesses and Braintree College were there present. And I think the message that we have got is that whilst businesses are adjusting to the very difficult time that they have gone through 2020, they actively want to continue to invest in people, particularly around investments, but they need the certainty of a full order book in terms of work for companies to move ahead with their expansion and indeed taking on new members of staff and training new members of staff. And I think it's incumbent upon the public sector, where possible, to ensure that we're in a position to drive forward orders, to drive forward work, to help stimulate the private sector wherever possible. And I think we're doing our bit here at Braintree District Council. And I think it's important that government continue to do that in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take Councillor Abbott's got another question, then I'm going to take Councillor Rose, then I'm looking at the time.
Yes, two very brief questions to Councillor Spray. Can Councillor Spray either now or in writing to members give some indication as to how the suggested improvements to planning enforcement are coming along? I do obviously always caveat that by saying I appreciate the pressure officers are under, but that we hope we can get some improvement in planning enforcement, both in terms of performance and audit. And secondly, and I ask this in public because this remains a significant issue in Silver End, with planning decisions where residents feel, you know, one's getting one decision, one's getting another. Can she update us on where we are with the Silver End Conservation Area Guide?
Thank you. Response, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I think, if I may, I will give you a written response to both of those. Planning enforcement, certainly I will need to get an update from officers, and also the Silver End Design Guide, which I know is very much to the forefront of your mind and mine. But I'll get an update for you on both those and send it through to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And Councillor Rose?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's a question for Councillor Schmidt, but a written response to my question would be acceptable due to the lateness of the hour. But would the Cabinet member be able to assist me in establishing who is responsible for the maintenance of the regenerated shopping area in Spire Road in Witham? The last communication I received from Greenfields advised that the flooding of the short stay front car park is due because of the new tarmac surface has sunk. Greenfield's asset department say it's not their responsibility, and to date I have not received any response from BDC, and the problem remains. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. A response?
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Yes, I did see the email that you copied me in on. I will have to check on that. A road, a car park, it is quite difficult. Certainly the land doesn't belong to us as far as I'm aware, but it crosses all sorts of things. But if East Light is definitely saying it's not their responsibility, I'll try to find out who it is and I'll give you a written response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Thorogood?
Thank you. Yeah, I've just got 3 questions. First one is quite brief. To Councillor Smith, are there any plans to start charging parish councils for fly tipping in this or the next financial year? To Councillor Spray, when the site-wide strategy for large-scale housing developments is a condition for an outline planning agreement, it is agreed between the developer and BDC's planning department. There is no public consultation, including no consultation with local parish councils, and once completed, there is no chance of challenging the conclusion. The site-wide strategy then acts as a predetermined straitjacket for subsequent reserved matters applications. Could this process be looked at? Because it seems that at the moment local voices are being ignored. And then lastly, just for Councillor Bebb, you've answered some of it in your previous answer, but can you confirm that the hole in BDC's finances caused by the COVID-19 pandemic roughly equates to the amount spent by BDC on the garden community section of the local plan that included West Hay and West Braintree? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry, Madam Chairman, but Councillor Thorogood, I really couldn't hear what you were asking me. It was something to do with fly tips and parish councils. Which...
Your question was very brief. It's, are there any plans to start charging parish councils for fly tipping in this financial year or next?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by charging them for fly tipping.
It's just that in a recent case, there was some rubbish was left out in Fearing, and the parish council was charged for it. And then there was an ambiguous email which didn't really say that charging wasn't going to be a future consideration. So I just want to find out if there is any plans to charge, because it will affect the precept for parish councils.
I'm quite baffled. I will give you a written response.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Who
Sorry,
else?
Madam? Yeah, Madam Chairman, if I
Yes.
could just come back. Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Councillor Thorogood. I will speak to officers about the nature of your question and see whether there is, anything that can be done to improve consultation on that point. All right, and I
Okay.
will get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much.
And from my point of view, just to say that, in fact, what I've been referring to is our revenue spending and income. And what you're referring to was, in fact, from for the garden communities, was from infrastructure fund, not our revenue at all.
Okay. So they're not the same.
Right.
They don't amount to the same amount.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I think we have actually come to the end of what's a very long list. Councillor Butland, did you have anything you wanted to say? Not particularly? No.
I have another question.
Yes, so thank you very much, everybody. And as far as I'm aware, and I'll just double check. Is that? I think you asked it before. Oh, right, we've got one more. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, two quick questions to Councillor Cunningham. Firstly, in respect of Whittam Town Centre physical improvements, he says that these details are going to be shared with the Town Council and ward members. Will they also be shared with the County Councillor who represents Whittam Town Centre? And secondly, regarding his comments about the G&I group and cooperating with the authority, we certainly want to do that whenever we can, but how does he think that's helped by the way we've been treated tonight and the way I am specifically being treated by being stripped out of three particular situations I sit on in talking to other group leaders and the leader of the council? In what way is that helping with cooperation?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In respect to his first question regarding the involvement of county councillors, I will certainly make provision to keep county members updated on improvements across both Whittam and Halstead. But I will be speaking to district councillors first, as these are projects being delivered by this authority. I will then engage with the town councillors as they have been active stakeholders in the process. Then I will certainly discuss this with the county council members who represent wider areas than just the town centres. So that is the approach I'll take, and I look forward to briefing Councillor Abbott accordingly. In respect to his second question, my understanding is, and unless I've misread the paperwork, Councillor Abbott remains a full and active member of the Horizon 120 reference group. He has been the active member, I believe, since the formation of this administration. And whilst we disagree on some things, I am quite convinced that he and I share a similar ambition in terms of growth and prosperity for the residents of the Braintree district. And I look forward to our conversations, continuing conversations over the months and years ahead. I appreciate we do not we perhaps may not agree on everything. He may well have taken slight umbrage to comments I made in the debate earlier. What I would respectfully say that Councillor Abbott has been far more constructive on these matters than some members of his Green and Independent group, forgive me. I refer to comments made when we were looking at the employment strategy for garden communities, when I said that our work with other authorities on these issues, there wasn't a cigarette paper between us. And I think Councillor Walsh came up with a witticism saying, oh, it's probably a fag end strategy. Councillor Abbott doesn't resort to those sort of tactics, and I look forward to good continuing conversations with him in the months and years ahead.
So why am I being punished and taken off group leaders, cabinet and developing democracy?
Point of order, Madam Chairman. It's usual the format of this that questions are asked, and I appreciate it's slightly different. The leader then delegates who answers the question. These are matters that have been discussed earlier, and they are not matters for me to answer at this moment in time. I have honest fully and frankly, and I do not wish to add anything this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going on to item 12 anyway. Everybody has said, as far as I'm aware and as far as I've facilitated, everybody has had their say on whatsoever subject they have wanted to bring up. And I'm very proud of you all. It's very difficult when you're all looking at screens and some microphones are not as good as others. I think you've all been quite brilliant. And I tell you somebody who has been totally brilliant. Well, actually, two of them. The officers here are the best. We have the highest quality officers, and I'm extremely fortunate to be sitting with them along with our post-it notes. And I hope you will all feel that I have done my best under what are, for all of us actually, quite constraining circumstances. And I don't think there's anything that will be put on Facebook to say anything against any of us. Well done, everybody. This concludes our business for this evening. Thank you to everybody, press and the public. And I'm closing the meeting then at what my clock in here says, 10:09. Does everybody else make it that? Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I ask the webcaster to terminate this broadcast, I'd urge members to complete the short survey, which will be emailed to members shortly after this meeting. This is very important for us to improve our meetings going forward. I'd also like to remind members that the Council will retain performance data relating to your connections to this meeting in the event of a legal challenge. Thank you very much, members, for your attendance this evening, and good night.